Hi once again, grade 7. I hope you're still doing well while listening to this video. And now it's time for us to have our video lesson for the third week. So as you can see on your screen, our third week's lesson is all about active and passive voices. Before we begin the lesson, I'm reminding you to please have your modules with you as well as your learning guides. So gina-remind namon liwat nga ang learning guide naton is very important because your learning guide will tell you kung ano lang ang mga activities nga inyo answeran. So once again, kindly get your modules and your learning guides. Before we discuss active and passive voices, let us first review our last week's lesson. If you still remember, our previous lesson was genres of viewing. So let's try to answer the following questions about our last week's lesson. 1. What is genre? Correct. When we say genre, it means a kind, a type, a category, or a classification. So we translated it sa Tagalog last time as uri. Number 2 review question. What is a viewing genre? Right. A viewing genre refers to the types of materials that you can view on a screen, like the television or the computer. Last review question. What are the different types of viewing genre? Alright, so the different types of viewing genre we discussed were animation, trailer, education, variety shows, news or news flash, documentary, infomercial, and movie or video clip. Like I said, our lesson for the week is all about active and passive voices. So kindly take note of the following objectives. 1. Utilize the passive and active voices in the correct manner. It means, after sang lesson, dapat makabalo na kita mag-usar sang passive kag active nga voice. Number 2, identify active and passive voices in different types of writing. It means, after sang lesson, dapat makabalo na magtulok kung ang imo ginatulok bala active nga sentence or passive nga sentence. Number 3, construct sentences using active and passive voices. It means after sang lesson dapat ikaw makabalo na magsulat sang sentence nga ara sa active voice kag magsulat sang sentence nga ara sa passive voice. Last objective, use the passive and active voices in varied manners. So ang katapusan nga objectives, ikaw gina-expect nga kabalo na mag-usar sang active kag passive voices sa lain-lain nga paagi after sang lesson. So before i-explain ni sir ang lain-lain nga concepts about active and passive voices, kindly get your notebooks first and please answer the following activities indicated on your screen. The same activities can also be seen in your learning guide. So amo ni dapat ang una naton nga answeran. Number 1, what's in task 2? Looking at e-news headline. And what's new task 3? Spot the difference, fill me in. So like always, kindly pause the video while answering. Only go back to the video after you finish with your activities. Kindly get ready for the discussion. Once again, our lesson for the week is all about active and passive voices. So kung hindi mag-focus, I'm sure medyo mabudlayan kita. So that's why I will try my best nga ipainsindi or pahapuson ang lesson para ang tanan makainsindi. Okay? So sa liwat, ang aton lesson is all about active and passive voices. Pero, hindi naton maintindihan ang active kag passive voices kung hindi kita magbalik sa ginatawag naton nga sentences. Di ba sang elementary kita, natun-an na naton or natudlo na sang aton mga teachers ang ginatawag nga sentence. Sa Tagalog or sa Filipino, ang sentence ginatawag nga pangungusap. Okay? So mabalik kita danay, ano ang ginatawag nga sentence? Ang sentence sa English is a group of words nga may ara subject, verb, kag object. Okay? Kung kisa gani bisan wala na object, basta may subject lang kag may verb, sentence na nasa. Pero importante sa lesson ta subong ang ining tatlo ka basic parts sang sentence. So dapat tani tandaan kag insindihon. Ang una nga part sang sentence is ang ginatawag naton nga subject. So what is a subject? A subject is the one being talked about in the sentence. Sa aton pa, ang ginaistoryahan sang sentence. Amo na siya ang ginatawag nga subject. And where do you usually find your subject? Ang aton subject, kalabanan ara sa una sang sentence. It's usually found at the beginning of the sentence or in the beginning of the sentence. What is the second basic part of a sentence? Ang ginatawag naton nga verb. That is the second basic part of a sentence. And what is a verb? A verb is the state of being or the action. Pero kay aton lesson, active kag passive voice, ibutang ta na lang ang verb nagatumod sa action nga ginahimo sang subject. Okay? So, kay action nga ginahimo sang subject, kung pamangkoton kung diin makita ang verb, usually ang verb nagasunod sa subject. Okay? And the third basic part of a sentence is the object. So, ang object naman is the receiver of the action. Ang nagabaton sang verb. Okay? So, don't worry, kay after this slide, we will have an example para mas klaro sa inyo kung ano ang ginatawag nga basic part of a sentence. So, once again, the object is the receiver of the action. So, it means, ang object usually nagasunod sa imo nga verb. Okay? So, to recall, the three basic parts of a sentence are your subject, your verb, and your object. So, what you see on your screen are two examples of sentences. So, subong, i-apply naton ang natun-an sa previous slide. Kay hambal ko sa previous slide, ang sentence usually may ara, subject, verb, kag object. Okay? So, kindly read the first sentence with me. Michael writes a poem. So, right now, aton i-identify ang subject, verb, kag object. So, hambal ko kagina, ang subject is the one being talked about in the sentence and it is usually found in the beginning of the sentence. So, ang subject ginaistoryahan sa sentence nga kalabanan ara sa una. So, sa aton sentence nga Michael writes a poem, what do you think is the subject? Okay. So, in this case, ang aton nga subject is Michael. So, we will label this S. Okay? For our subject. Now, may ara na kita subject. So, ang pangitaon ta next will be our verb and object. So ang verb naton hambal ta kagina is usually the action being done by the subject. Ang action sang subject. So in this case, what do you think is the verb in the sentence? Alright, so if you think the verb is writes, di ba write sulat? Okay, so you are correct. Okay, so we have our verb writes, and the third part is our object, which is the receiver of the action. Okay, ano ang ginasulat ni Michael? So in this case, we have a poem. Di ba? Okay, so ang aton poem ang nag-receive or nagbaton sang action nga sulat. Kay ginpamangkot kagina ano ang ginsulat ni Michael. Anong ginasulat ni Michael? A poem. So siya ang nagbaton sang action. Therefore, ang poem naton is the object. Okay? So nakita naton ang aton nga sentence may ara subject, may ara verb, kag may ara object. Okay? So, let's try again to identify the subject, the verb, and the object in the second sentence. Okay, everybody read the sentence with me. She fried some fish. So we will do the same. What is the subject of the sentence? Sino ang ginaistoryahan or ano ang ginaistoryahan? O ara sa una, syempre we have she, ang aton nga subject. So she is the subject of the sentence. Next, what is the verb of the sentence? Ano iya ginhimo? O nagprito. So the action of our subject is fried. So we will label this verb. Ano ang ginprito niya? Ang nagabaton sang action, we have some fish. So therefore, some fish is our object. Okay? So balik ha, hindi paglipati kay importante na sa later sa aton active kag passive voice. Ang aton sentence usually may ara subject, verb, kag object. So kay nakabalo na kita nga ang sentence may ara subject, verb, kag object, pwede na naton sugdan ang aton voice of a verb. So ano na sa ang ginatawag nga voice of a verb? The voice of a verb tells whether the subject in the sentence performs or receives the action. Butsilingon, kung mag-istoryahan na ita about voice of a verb, aton ginaistoryahan ang relationship sang subject kag sang verb. Kung bala ang imo subject, siya ang nagahimo sang action, or ang subject, siya ang nagabaton sang action. Okay? So, amo na sa ang ginatawag nga voice of a verb. Ang relasyon sang imo subject kag imo verb, whether ang imo subject ang nagahimo sang action or ang imo subject ang nagabaton sang action. Okay? Don't worry again, we will understand the concept better later. So, how many voices of the verbs do we have? The answer is 2. 1 is active voice, 2 is passive voice. Let us understand first active voice. So basaha maayo ha. In the active voice, the subject performs the action of the verb. Okay? That is a very simple concept. Kung naintindihan naton ang subject kag verb kag object kagina, hapos na lang insindihon. Subot silingon, ang imo nga sentence ara sa active voice kun ang imo subject amo ang nagahimo sang action. Okay? We will try to analyze the following examples of sentences in the active voice. Focus first sa aton una nga sentence. It reads, Giselle sings a song. So let's go back to identifying first our subject, verb, and object. Who is being talked about in the sentence? Correct, it's Giselle. So Giselle is our subject. What action is indicated in the sentence? Ano ang action nga makita sa sentence? We have sings. Correct. So this is our verb. Ano ang receiver sang action? Ano ang ginakanta ni Giselle? So we have a song. Diba? So this is our object. Okay? So, para mabalaan mo ang voice ng imong sentence, we will focus first on our subject and verb. So, ang subject naton nga si Giselle, kag ang aton nga verb nga sings. In this case, si Giselle ang nagakanta. Therefore, si Giselle nga subject is the one performing the action. So, kung insindihon ta kagina ang hambal sa active voice, kung ang subject ang nagahimo sang action, therefore, your sentence is active. So the sentence, Giselle sings a song, is an example of an active voice. Okay, second sentence, the puppy chewed the shoe. Okay, identify again the subject. The subject is the puppy because it's the one being talked about in the sentence. What is the action of the puppy? Chewed. Correct. Kinusap. So this is the action. This is the verb. And what is the receiver of the action? Ano ang ginusap sang puppy? Shoe. Diba? So this is our object. Okay. When asked, kung ikaw pamangkuton, what is the voice of the verb? The answer is active. Kaya nga ang subject nga puppy, siya man ang nagahimo sang action. So the concept is very simple. Kung ang subject, siya ang nagahimo sang action, your sentence is in the active voice. Please try to remember that. The second type of voice is passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject receives the action of the verb. Okay? So, highlighted ang word nga receive. But silingon, passive ang imo nga voice sang sentence kung ang subject nimo wala siya nagahimo sang action or hindi siya ang nagahimo sang action pero siya ang naga-receive sang action. Let's try to look at some examples. And here are two examples of sentences in the passive voice. Kung na-notice ninyo, ang duwa naton ka sentence are almost similar sa ginusara kagina naton nga sentence sa active voice. Okay? So pwede ninyo ma-pause ang video kag inyo ilista or inyo panumdumon ang differences nga makita ninyo sa sini nga sentences kag sa kagina nga sentences. Okay, so if you have made your list of the differences, then let's try discussing kung nga ang ini nga duwa ka sentences are in the passive voice. Okay? O focus ta danay sa first sentence. Everybody read. A song is sung by Giselle. So pareho japon ang aton himuon. Let's try to identify first the subject and the verb. So in this sentence, ano ang aton nga subject? Ano or sino ang aton nga ginaistoryahan? O di ba hambal ta kagina usually ang subject ara sa una. Therefore, in this sentence, a song is our subject. Okay? Sige, ano ang action naman sa aton nga first sentence? Of course, kanta, di ba? So this is our verb. So, try to analyze this time kung ano ang relasyon sang aton subject nga kanta kag ang aton verb nga ginkanta. Ang kanta bala ang nagahimo sang verb or nagahimo sang action? Of course, hindi. Diba? So this time, ang aton nga subject amo ang nagabaton sang action. That's why our sentence is in the passive voice. O suliton ha, ang aton nga subject sa sentence, amo ang nagabaton sang action. That's why our sentence is in the passive voice. So sa passive voice, ang nagahimo sang action ara sa ulihi. Usually. Okay? Kung na-notice nyo, ang doer, maghambal gani si Sir doer ang nagahimo sang action. Ang doer naton, gina-introduce sang word nga by. Okay? So sa liwat, ang aton nga doer or ang naghimo sang action sa aton nga passive voice usually ara sa ulihi. Tapos gina-introduce sa sang word nga by. Pero sa passive voice, pwede gid kuhaon ang imo nga doer. Ang imo nga sentence will still be complete if you say, for example, a song is sung. Period. Okay? So, amo na siya ang kinalain sang aton nga passive voice. Kay ikaduwa, the shoe was chewed by the puppy. O identify the subject again. We have the shoe is the subject. Kaya ra sa una, kag siya ang ginaistoryahan. What is the action of the sentence? Was chewed. Ginusap. Diba? Okay, so amo na aton nga verb. Sino nag-usap? Ang puppy. So ang aton nga doer, this time ara sa ulihi. Nan, gin-introduce ang word nga by. So kung pamangkoton, what is the voice of the verb? Ang answer is passive. Nga aman liwat, kay ang subject sang aton nga sentence, amo ang nagabaton sang action. Ang doer, ara sa ulihi sang sentence, kag in-introduce ang word nga by. Kag pwede na lang nga ang sentence nimo kwaon mo ang by the puppy, kag mahambal ka, the shoe was chewed. Period. Okay? So sa liwat, ang imo nga sentence ara sa passive voice kun ang subject ang nagabaton sang action. Ang imo doer ara sa likod sang sentence or sa katapusan sang sentence kag gina-introduce ang word nga by. Okay. So let's try to practice identifying whether the sentence is in the active voice or in the passive voice. Okay. Let's read the first sentence. The doctor performs an operation. Okay, what is the voice of the verb? Again, try to identify the subject and the verb para hapos mag-identify sa inyo. What is the subject of the sentence again? We have the doctor. Correct. And what is the action of the sentence? We have performs. So we have the verb. So lantawa ang relationship sang subject kag verb. Ang doctor nag-perform sang operation. So ang doctor bala ang naghimo sang verb sa sentence? Yes. So since ang subject ang nagahimo sang action sang sentence, our first sentence is active. Correct. Okay. Second, a wooden doll was created by the craftsman. Okay. So identify the subject again. What is the subject of the sentence? Correct. A wooden doll. And what is the verb of the sentence? Was created. Okay, so we have the subject and we have the verb. Okay. So what is the voice of the verb? Ang subject nga wooden doll ang ginhimo sang craftsman. So ang subject bala nagabaton or nagahimo sang action? O, siya ang nagabaton sang action. Kay ang doer mo ara sa likod. 'Di ba? Ang doer mo is ang craftsman kag may by ka sa sentence. So, what is the voice of the verb? Passive. Correct. Okay, number 3. Our teacher will give a test. O sulit. Identify the subject. Our teacher. What is the action of the sentence? Will give. Correct. Verb. O, try to analyze. What is the voice of the verb? Ang subject bala ang nagahimo sang action or ang subject bala ang nagabaton sang action? If you said that the sentence is active, you are correct. Oh, very good. Last sentence. Several projects are made by the student. What is the voice of the verb? The same. Pangitao ng subject. We have several projects as our subject. And the verb. We have are made. Okay. O lantawa ang relationships ang imo subject kag verb. Okay? So, ang aton nga subject ang nagabaton sang action. Therefore, ang sentence naton passive. Another evidence, ang imo sentence may by, kag ang imo nga nagahimo sang action ara sa ulihi. Okay? So, I hope by now, naintindihan na or nakabalo na mag-identify sang sentence nga ara sa active voice kag sentence nga ara sa passive voice. And we will go on sa next steps ang aton lesson. This time, we will talk about changing active voice to passive voice. Kay pwede naton gali ma-change ang sentence nga active into passive. Okay? Alright. So, sa pag-change sang sentence, halin sa active, pakadto sa passive, aton lang tandaan ang tatlo ka steps. Kung hindi gid makuha, hindi ma-frustrate ha. Ang importante, atong una naton nga lesson, nga makabalo ka mag-identify sang active kag passive voice. Ari, this is just a secondary lesson na lang. So, once again, kung hindi gid makuha, it's okay. So, the 3 steps in changing active to passive voice are the following. Una, make your object the subject of the sentence. Don't worry again, we will have several examples later para mas hapos ninyo makuha. So, ang una kuno nimo nga himuon, ang object nimo, himuon mo nga subject. Makita nyo na karon kung paano na siya obrahon. Ikaduwa, put the doer of the action after the preposition by. Diba sang gindiscuss ta kagina ang passive, nakita nyo nga may preposition nga by. So, that's why, mag-change ikaw sang sentence nga active pa kadto passive, ang imo nga subject ibutang mo na later sa sa tupad sang by. Okay? So, once again, you will see that later kung paano na sa obrahon. And lastly, add a helping verb to the main verb and change the main verb form into its past participle form. Okay? Kung nagamuhan sa number 3, don't worry. Ang next slide naton, kaya ang number 3 daw pareho sa mathematics bala class, it's all about the formula. So, pwede lang gid nga lantawon to nimo ang formula or ang pattern para hapos na lang mag-copy sa imo. Okay? So, to understand what I am trying to say, please refer to the next slide. So, kaimportante nga mag-change ka sa active to passive voice, dapat ma-change ang imo verb forman. Amo ni siya ang table nga lantawon nyo later. Okay? Kay like what I said, it's all about the pattern ang changing sang active to passive kag passive to active. So kung lantawon nyo da, kung diin da ang gatinupungay, amo na siya ang kapihon nyo man nga verb form. O for example, ang simple past naton, this one, for example, ang imo nga sentence nga ara sa active voice, amo ni ang nakita mo nga itsura sang verb. Okay? So, subot silingon active ni sa. So, ang himo-himuon, para masunod mo to ang step 3 kagina sa tatlo ka steps, himuon mo lang siya amo ni sa imo nga passive voice. Okay? So, tupungay na sila nga duwa. So, like what I said, it's all about the pattern. So, lantawon mo di sa table, you can take a picture of it para hapos sa inyo later mag-transpose. O, another example, kakita ka active sentence nga ang iya nga pattern amo ni nakahambal be was walking or were walking. Subot silingon, past continuous na siya. Don't mind the tenses. Hindi ni siya importante ang sa diri na yun nga part. Ang importante ang ari ang voice forms. Okay? Ang voice forms. Okay. So makakita ka for example was were walking. This one again was were walking. So para masunod mo again ang step 3, sundon mo lang ni nga pattern. Was were being walked. Mahimo na sa passive. So again, this is the active voice form of the verb. Ang sa second column. Pag mag-change ka, ari ang sa third column. This is the passive voice form. Okay? So again, please take a photo para may basihan ka mo later mag-changing. Amo man na siya mag-change passive. Example, amo ni ang passive form. Amo man isa ang pag-change mo sa active form. Okay? So remember, it's all about the pattern. So we will now do an actual demonstration of changing a sentence nga ara sa active voice pakadto sa passive voice. Of course, ang ara nga sentence sa babaw is the one which is active. Kaya muna sa aton i-change. Mike cooked the rice. Of course, there's no need for me to explain nga ang sentence active kay kabalo na kamuna based on our discussion earlier. Okay? So remember the 3 general steps in changing active to passive voice. Very, very simple steps. 1, ang object mahimo subject. Second, ang doer ibutang pagkatapos sa preposition nga by. Okay? That is very simple. And the third, i-change ang verb form base to kagina sa table nga inyo na picturean or ginhatag ko kagina sa previous slide. Okay? So, let's start. I-identify ta danay ang subject, verb, kag object sa sentence. So, ang subject naton, of course, is Mike. Diba? So, we have our subject. Our verb is cooked. And the object, kay siya ang nagabaton sang action sang verb is rice. Okay? So this is how you change an active sentence to a passive sentence. Una nga step, ibutang ang object sa subject nga part. Diba? So this is step 1. Mike cooked the rice. Ang rice, nga object, ginpauna nimo, ginhimo nimo, subject. So, di ba sa passive, ang receiver nimo nahimo na nga subject sang sentence. Okay? O, that is very simple. Ikaduwa, ang imo nga doer, ibutang pagkatapos sa preposition nga by. Di ba? Okay. So, that's why si Mike ara na sa ulihi. So, that's step 2. Okay? And the last step is this one. You have to change the verb. Ang cooked nahimo was cooked. Sir, paano mo na gin-change? Ano gani akong hambal kagina? Balik dito sa table. Kay it's all about the pattern. So, kayang imo di nga verb ed, cooked. Kung lantawon mo na sa table, na may ara na da was, were, cooked. Kaya muna siya ang tupong sang imo nga simple past nga cooked. Okay? So, was, were na ang nakabutang. Ang rice, wala s, singular. That's why, gingamit ko was. Okay? Kay option ang were kung damo. Example, mahambal ka, the bananas, na damo, di ba? So, were taken, na amo na siya magamit sang was kag were. Okay? So, let's have another example. O, another example, the doctor performs an operation. Again, the sentence is in the active voice. I-change ta sa passive. So, sulito nato naton ginhimo. Identify the subject first. The doctor is the subject. The verb is performs. And the object is operation. Okay. Sige. Now, step 1, put your object in the subject position. 1. So, ang imo operation to nga object ginhimo nimo subject. 2. Put your doer after by. So, that's step 2. And number 3, change the form of the verb. Again, based on the table. Kay ara siya performs. Kung lang tawon nyo da sa table, that is simple present. So, amo ni ang itsura sang simple present nga passive. Is performed or are performed. Di ba? May aran na that choice again. Pero, kay operation, isa lang kabilog. So, nag-usar ta, is performed. Kung operations, therefore, we say are performed. Okay? So, those are very, very simple steps. Please try to review on your own. We will have several practice items later. Okay, it's time for you to practice on your own how to change an active sentence to a passive sentence. Please try to change the following sentence into its passive voice. That store sells candies. Okay, please pause the video and try to change the sentence on your own. So if you are done answering, the correct passive form of the sentence is candies are sold by that store. So that is the passive form of the sentence. Now it's time to perform changing passive voice to active voice. Butsilingon ang suli naman, halin sa passive, i-change natin ang sentence to active voice. So, kay ginsuli lang naton ang active to passive, abot silingon ang steps kagi nga ginhimo naton, sulion man lang naton for us to be able to change a passive sentence to an active sentence. So, we still have 3 steps to follow in changing passive voice to active voice. Number 1, make your subject the object of the sentence. O himuon ta naman ang subject nga object. Ginsuli ta lang. Second, remove the preposition by. O kuwaon ta na ang by sa aton nga active sentence. Kaya ang active sentence, wala na sang preposition nga by. Kaya number 3, use the active form of the verb. So for this step, again, balik kita dito sa table nga ginhatag ko kagina. Because, again, it's all about the pattern. Okay. So, please watch this demonstration on how to change a passive sentence to an active sentence. The first thing you need to do still is to label your sentence. So, you have your subject, you have your verb, was cooked, and then you have your doer. In this case, we have Mike. Okay? So, you go back to the 3 steps I said. Number 1, make your subject the object of the sentence. That's why, ang rice dire, ginbalhin naton sa ulihi. So that's step 1. Ikadua, remove the preposition by and transfer the doer to the subject. So ang doer sa imo passive nga sentence ari diri na yun sa pagkatapos ang by nga si Mike. So this one, i-transfer naton si Mike sa una kag kwaon ta ang by. Oh, that's step 2, right? Okay. And the last step is aton i-change ang verb form base sa pattern dito sa table. So ang was cooked, lantawon nimo sa table ano iatupong o ed form lang. So you have cooked. That's step 3. Diba? It's very simple. So then you have your subject, you have your verb, and you have your object. So your new active sentence now is Mike cooked the rice. Another example, your passive sentence is a wooden doll was made by the craftsman. Still, I will label the sentence. Your subject is a wooden doll. The verb is was made. And your doer is the craftsman. So I will start changing. Step 1, make the subject the object of your new sentence. Step 1. Second, remove the preposition by and transfer your doer to the subject part. That's step 2. And last, change the verb form to its active form. Again, lantaw sa table kay ato didto ang pattern. So your active sentence now is the craftsman made a wooden doll. For your practice, kindly change the following passive sentence into an active one. The new house will be rented by the couple. Please pause the video and work on your own. So if you are done, kindly check your answer. The correct answer is the couple will rent the new house. So hopefully by now, you are now able to change a passive sentence into an active one correctly. So let's try to summarize everything that we have learned in this session by answering the following review questions. Number 1, what is a voice of the verb? Correct. A voice of the verb tells whether the subject performs or receives the action. So ginasugid ya ang relationship sang subject kag verb. Number 2, what is an active voice? Correct. An active voice is a sentence where the subject performs the action of the verb. Active ang imo nga sentence kung ang subject ang nagahimo sang action. Number 3, what is a passive voice? A passive voice is a sentence where the subject receives the action of the verb. O kung passive ang sentence kung ang subject ang nagabaton sang action sang verb. How do you change an active voice into a passive voice? Alright, number 1, make your object the subject of the sentence. Number 2, put your doer after the preposition by. And number 3, change your active verb to its passive form. Okay, last review question. How do you change a passive voice into an active voice? Alright, so you have to make your subject the object of your new sentence. Second, remove the preposition by, and make your doer the subject of your new sentence. And the third, of course, is to change the verb form into its active form. So I really hope that you understood our lesson for the week. Just to remind you again, if medyo may hindi klaro, try to find other resources on the internet that will help you. You can also use books if you have, and you can message me directly kung medyo hindi gid maintindihan. Okay? But now it's time for you to answer the rest of your activities. Just to remind you again, i-answer lang or answeran lang kung ano ang ginhambal nga answeran. Please try to skip ato ang mga wala na dala sa aton lista. Okay? So just answer the following on your notebook. What's more? Task 5, identify me if you can. Then you may proceed to what's more. Task 6, work it out. Exercises A and B, pero hindi tanan pag-anseran. For exercise A, answer only numbers 2 and 3. And for exercise B, answer only numbers 8 and 9. After, proceed to what I have learned. Task 7, classify me please. And your last activity for the week is assessment. Task 10, summing it up. Okay? So I hope you will do well with the activities. Once again, good luck and see you in our next session.